Well, life's so alright, controlling this crazy space.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. And this is Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and something that you might experience in life if you're like around my age, you have any kids or anything like that, and you have to have some questions about something. And I've got some good question for you. Do you have Gen Z children? Because I have a Gen Z son. Okay. I also have an older boy, but we're going to talk about my Gen Z son here because this is, we have some points of contention that we kind of have to navigate as a family. You know, as his dad, as my son. He's 21 years old, so he's technically speaking, he's an adult now. Although a lot of kids don't seem to feel the need to grow up, and everything. But hey, that's kind of one of those points of contention. But right now, we're going to talk tech. Okay, so in the technical world, little things like, we may all share the same world, but we definitely don't share the same Wi-Fi settings. How about that? Think about it that way. So some of the habits, my boy was born into a world where tech was everywhere around him already. He was born in 2003. So 3 years after he was born, YouTube was started. And we had very few guardrails back then. We don't have a whole lot of them now. So, he's fluent in things like memes and digital slang and certain things. And he doesn't use a lot of slang around me, thankfully. Because otherwise, I had to look up what cat meant. So it's like, now I know when somebody says no cap. Oh, so you're telling the truth. I had to figure that out. I had to Google that. Sus. Okay, that one makes a little bit of sense. Suspect. Slay, fire. These things that Gen Z uses. Now there's a whole nother generation out there. Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha has a whole different alphabet of memes and slang and different words that they use. We in Gen Z, we had to kind of adapt to technology as it's come to us. So we started out, like I was born in 1970. Nobody could afford computers. Come on. The first computers that came up that were like PC level or something you would use on a regular basis. First off, there was no internet. Of course, there was no internet at homes. The internet at the time was like between universities and maybe a little bit of military application. That was it. Okay, so it wasn't in the home. So if you had a computer in your house, that thing cost thousands and thousands of dollars in like 1980. So that was totally off the market for 99% of the population. You had to be in that 1%. You had to be a 1%er. Think of it that way. To use a more modern phrase, you had to be a 1%er to afford a computer back then. So we didn't have them necessarily. Now, the first computers that I got my hands on, I think I had a Commodore 64 that the neighbor girl across the street, her little brother had it. Yeah, we were boyfriend girlfriend for a little bit. So whatever that means when you're junior high. That was the first computer I got my hands on at all, and I didn't understand anything about that darn thing. So then after that in school we had the Apple IIe. We learned a little bit of really simple coding because our teacher that was teaching us, she was like 95 years old, and so she didn't know anything. She was going through a 3-ring binder trying to get us to do anything. Yeah, I didn't get the good teacher for that either. So we kind of had to figure it all out on our own. When we think that we have to have like a manual to understand some things, it's because that's the way we've always done it. We started out with nothing, and we've worked our way up. For Gen Z, everything's really fast. Everything's very a visual and a constant evolution of these really. Thank God my boy doesn't get into these things with the TikTok dances and the challenges and sometimes I do think he probably did the type challenge and never told me, but. Just because his brain's not always all there, but he's 21. Who has a good brain at 21? Not many people. When we're posting something, we're Gen X. Where we find ourselves a lot? We find ourselves on Facebook a lot. Maybe on Twitter a little bit. I'm on Twitter a little bit, but most of my social media time is spent on Facebook. And why is that? Because we can have longer posts there. We can kind of get our whole thoughts out. We can get everything going. And I've been seeing some of these things about these people who complain about things like the boomer ellipses, which is the ... Right? So you have a thought and then you do a dot, 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 and maybe you interject something into that thought, and then dot, 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 and finish the original thought. They don't do that at all. And to them, that's really weird. Punctuation. I still put a period at the end of most sentences, okay? You know, okay, I admit I don't double space after a period anymore. I did get rid of that. I know a lot of people that are going to hold on to that forever. I don't do it. I'm okay with it. But these are some of the things. I mean, so for Gen Z, I mean, texting is too slow most of the time. They're going to FaceTime. They're not going to call you. They're not going to text you. They're going to FaceTime you or something like, or something along those lines, just to kind of, get things, get it out there really fast. Just a quick message. I remember I did Marco Polo for a little bit, and that was kind of fun for a little bit. I had a little group that I was doing it with. I don't even know if that app still exists. So those are some of the things. Kids today will use emojis to talk to each other because I kind of get it, and I'm kind of into it because I like a lot of GIFs. I like GIFs, and the whole that interface and that ability to just kind of shoot a GIF out. It says volumes. I do kind of get the concept of the emojis, and I use some emojis out there. And when you come right down to it, I mean, I'm much better than a lot of people I know at my age. I'm good with texting. I'm good with like at work, I'll use Teams, which that's a horrible hot mess. But I can get the messages out pretty quick that way. Unfortunately, most of my team doesn't use Teams, so that then we revert to a lot of email, and a lot of my coworkers are Gen X. I'm trying to think if there's a single Gen Z in my particular work group, and I don't think there is. I think we're all Gen X or even a little bit past. So. Early, the younger boomers, maybe a couple of those, because I mean, Gen X goes up to about 60 years old, and after that, you're getting into the boomer range. Now, you talk to boomers. Boomers are really lost on a lot of the tech these days. There's a lot of savvy ones though, because remember they were learning the the coding and things like that when it was very early. And we were also learning a lot of the coding when it was very early. So now we're to the point where we're the developers, we're the bosses in these things. And we have these Gen Z kids, coming up, trying, doing all kinds of new things, and we really have to keep up with all of that. So, one of the differences also is the whole concept of gratifications, delayed gratification, and. We were not that great about delayed gratification. We weren't. But I'll tell you what, Gen Z is way worse than we were. So, we do understand the concept of having to wait to do things like, I didn't buy my first house until like about 10 years ago, to be honest. So, that's some serious delayed gratification. But to get a good car, you start off with a junker car. We understood that, and to get this nice apartment, you're going to have to live in a crap hole that you got to beat the roaches off your food before you eat it. Sometimes you got to do that, and they don't want to do that. So they have this concept of they have difficulty with delayed gratification. They also have a little tough time getting out of the nest. Let me tell you, when I turned 18, I was out of the nest. I was ready to go. And I moved 300 miles away from my hometown, 2 days after I turned 18. Kids today aren't doing that. And, it has to do with that whole, we weren't allowed in the house kind of concept. We were very independent. We wanted to get out of there and stop being under the thumb of people who could tell us what to do. And, turned 18, I jetted out. My boy's 21. He's showing no sign of leaving the nest at this point in time. I guess I was just been too nice of a dad, and I think that's one of our problems. But we're going to save that for another time. Tell me what you think some of the differences between Gen X and Gen Z are. What are the things you've encountered? Are you raising a Gen Z? Do you work with Gen Z? As a Gen Xer, we're different, and it's okay that we're different. But, what are some of the challenges you've dealt with? Anyway, hey, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot out. Thanks a lot. You have a good one.